of January 2024. Thank you for joining us at this time and a happy new year to you. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. The top stories. President Bola Tinubu says he will continue to work towards a better Nigeria. Pope Francis condemns killings in Plateau State. United Nations call for a concerted effort to start the process of rebuilding in 2024. Details coming up shortly. Welcome back and a happy new year to you once again. I am Omohefe Peace Osemere. Now, President Bola Tinubu says he will continue to work towards a better Nigeria to justify the trust placed in him by electing him into office in February 2023. The president, in his first New Year message to Nigerians, said trust had been his burden in all his policies and programs within and outside the country since he assumed office on May 29, 2023. According to him, he is expected to boost agricultural production, increase national productivity, and set the country on an irreversible path towards national greatness that future generations will forever be proud of. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu says he is not oblivious to the concerns that have been expressed, sometimes frustration, other times commendations by Nigerians. According to him, he hears the groans of Nigerians and assured the nation that though the time may be rough and tough, spirits must remain unbowed because tough times never last. President Tinubu said while some of the decisions it took may have brought discomfort, they were also aimed at saving the country from fiscal catastrophe. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, analyzing some of the events that shaped 2023, plus takeaways from President Tinubu's New Year message. Details of this and more after the break. Welcome back. This is News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Pope Francis yesterday prayed for an end to the killings in Jos, Plateau State. The Pope, while joining notable individuals to condemn the killings, sought prayers for the victims of the violence in a post on his official X handle. The Punch newspaper reports that gunmen on Christmas Eve launched attacks on the plateau, where no fewer than 195 persons were killed, 221 houses set ablaze, and about 10,000 people displaced. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, had on Friday visited Plateau State as a follow-up to the deployment of policemen in the attacked communities. According to the IG, President Bola Tinubu had ordered that the perpetrators of the heinous act be fished out and made to face the wrath of the law. The United Nations has described 2023 as a year of enormous suffering and violence across the world. In a solemn video message released on New Year's Eve, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for concerted efforts to end wars and start the process of rebuilding in 2024. Guterres' comments are not far from the ongoing war between Israel and Palestine following the invasion of Israel by Hamas on October 7th. At least 21,320 people have been reportedly killed. Also, the Russian-Ukrainian war, which broke out in February 2022, is still ongoing and raging. You recall in April last year, Sudan in North Africa plunged into another war, and there was also a coup and military takeover in Niger Republic in July, resulting in suffering following sanctions imposed on the country by the Economic Community of West African States. However, while addressing the world yesterday, the UN Secretary General said 2023 has been a year of enormous suffering, violence, and climate chaos. Now let's come home to Nigeria, where on this day last year, the former President Muhammadu Buhari, in his New Year message to Nigerians, had asked them to look at the year 2023 with hope and as a year to move forward as a nation towards unity, progress, and prosperity. That, of course, was his last New Year message as his tenure ended May last year. 2023 indeed brought to an end and also broke forth a new era of administration that was perhaps a major event that shaped 2023. But worthy of mention is the currency redesign policy, 2023 general elections, inauguration of President Bola Tinubu, removal of fuel subsidy, series of strikes, godfatherism and leadership tussle in Rivers and Ondo State, and sadly the demise of Rotimi Akeredolu, former governor of Ondo State. While we clink glasses to the new year, let us assess the outgone year as to how Nigeria and Nigerians fared and also the way forward. Joining us to discuss this is Salihu Mahmood Dantata, a public affairs analyst. He joins us live from Kaduna State. Good afternoon to you, Salihu.
Good afternoon, Efe.
Right, let's start first of all by saying a happy new year to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, real quick, let's get your perspective, as to some of the events that shaped 2023.
Yes, the ones that Nigerians will not forget in a hurry is, first of all, the removal of fuel subsidy immediately after the swearing in of the incumbent president, as well as Ahmed Bola Tinubu that today made prices of other commodities to go high, transportation and also other things. That is one of the first things Nigerians never forget in a hurry, because it touched the lives of everybody, whether big or small. That today, went from here and there, people pay through the nose, the price of foodstuffs, the price of all other things that makes the human living to going. So that is another thing that 2023 will not be forgotten in the minds of Nigerians, irrespective of religion, tribe, and clan. Then secondly, that was the year Muhammadu Buhari, the former president, handed over after the presidential elections. The new president, who is now the incumbent president, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. In fact, it witnessed a lot of to be or not to be until the election were held, and initially there were upheavals where the candidate of the Labour Party as well as that of the PDP had to be protesting the outcome of the presidential result as announced by the INEC chairman then, Mahmoud Yakubu. It did not go down well. It only took the intervention of the Peace Committee and the God Almighty, who gave them that wisdom, able to go up to what they had signed before the election. And again, it lingered on. It started from the lower to appellate court up to the apex court that dismissed it. Another issue that will not be forgotten in a hurry in Nigeria. And thirdly, there are issues of attacks in, for example, in Zamfara, where continuously the armed bandits continued the onslaught against innocent civilians. Then also there was, resurfacing of Boko Haram insurgents in northern part of Borno, where even a whole convoy of governor of Yobe State was attacked, even though it was not inside. Then in 2023, Nigerians will not also forget in a hurry the mistaken drone attack in Tudumbiri in Kaduna State, while people were observing Maulud Nabi and also of other issues. But above all, these are some of the frontline issues. Then again, the plateau killings that happened of recent is another thing that will not be forgotten, where everybody is angry as to why in this age this kind of things will still be happening.
Right. Of course, so much to talk about with a lot to take in, one would say. But in a sentence, how would you describe the outgone year, Salihu?
Well, I think 2023, we are praying that this year should be better than that, even though it was worst. I already gave you an example.
Right.
From January to whatever, it was that removal of fuel subsidy. Even though they said there are prospects in future and what have you, but that removal of fuel subsidy, made a lot of people not to be living up to feeding themselves 10 times daily, engaged in a lot of confidence are folded up even after the subsidy removal. So that singular happening in 2023, we are praying that this 2024 will not be like that, because any changes, no matter how good it will be in future, that brings about deprivation, put people in jeopardy and also other things, is not a good thing. So we are praying that 2024 should be accompanied with social security, should be accompanied with things that will better the lives of Nigerians entirely.
Right. Well, I mean, one must say amen to that prayer. Are you, by implication, saying that there were no milestones achieved in 2023?
Well, you see, no matter what the achievements were in 2023, one bad thing killed it, even though some of them in their government are saying no, that it has, okay, yes, I agree that they went around, turn around maintenance of Port Harcourt refinery. It was a good thing. Then again, Dangote, even though it's a private sector driven initiative, it was commissioned to cushion the effect of these high petroleum product prices and also other things. So in a way, I think the turnaround maintenance of Port Harcourt refinery was a thing in the right direction. Then the opening of the Dangote refinery. But no matter how beautiful their policies are, the only good things I can say in 2023 were that the elections, both presidential, senatorial, House of Reps, state houses of assembly, governorship, and others, were held peacefully. And we know what Sudan has turned out to be today, is political crisis. So I think one of the major gains in 2023 were the peaceful conduct of elections at all levels.
All right. I mean, in a minute, because of time, would you say that, we've been able to learn some sort of lessons, from the previous year?
Well, I think this year is just commencing.
Right.
Today is just first. So we just hope by first quarter, maybe by March, first quarter of this year, we'll be able to know whether we have learned, so that the policy formulators and policy makers will be able to change and know the kind of mistakes they made in 2023. So it is too early to judge whether we've learned yet, because we haven't gotten to first quarter of the year. All
right. Thank you very much, Salihu Mahmoud Dantata, a public affairs analyst. He joins us live from Kaduna State. Thank you so much. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be assessing, some of the takeaways from the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's first New Year message to Nigerians. Do join us again. Right, welcome back. You're still watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. And now, of course, the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, addressed Nigerians this morning in what, of course, was his first New Year message to Nigerians. And, of course, he spoke to a number of issues. He spoke to, implementing a new living wage for workers. In his words, the living wage of workers would be increased this year, and he says it is morally and politically correct to do this. And also he spoke to, the issues around, the nation's refineries. Of course, it says the modular, the Port Harcourt and Dangote refinery, of course, will begin operation this year. Of course, he spoke to the power sector as well and issues around that sector, where he says steady power supply through power installation projects across the country would also be looked into critically in the year 2024. You talk about food security and affordability. He says a stimulus will be provided for farmers to grow agricultural products and also to tackle the rising cost of food items. Well, of course, although, of course, he's aware of the fact that was, a very hard nut to crack. But, of course, he took that decision, though difficult but necessary, to save Nigeria from catastrophe. And he says, tough times never last. Anyways, joining us now in the studios to, assess or, discuss the key takeaways from the president's New Year message is Adefolarin Olamilekon, an economist and a lead researcher at Eco Analytics. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I'm so excited or happy to see you. It's a new year.
Exactly, and happy new year to you, and thanks for having me once again.
Right. So I'm very sure you kept tabs on, the president's, address this morning where he addressed Nigerians. And again, it speaks to the fact that he's hell-bent on encouraging Nigerians to be hopeful. Exactly. After all, it's a renewed hope administration we're operating. But let's, get your assessment of his, address this morning.
I think first is to understand that the president speaks from the volume of motivating Nigerians to understand that governance is not easy, and for him, he does not find it easy, because there's one line of his statement that I found very interesting when he said that all Nigerians must join hands collectively to ensure that this work is done.
Right.
And he also made mention that the work of governance is not just for him, the president, the governors, the ministers, the commissioners, that all Nigerians must be ready to put their hand on the plow and ensure that Nigeria gets better. But on the other aspect of it is that for me, that particular thing, although I love what he said, but the other side, when I could look critically at the statement, I was like, many of you in governance have been taking care of our taxpayers' money. So the more you are there, the more it is expected that you do the right thing. That's what I just quickly brought up. Then on the overall what he was saying this morning, I think the president was saying something that most of us have been expecting him to say for a very long time, especially in the area of the economy, which I was so interested in particularly where he said that he believed that they are putting in place reforms, tax reforms across board in the business sector, but they also ensure that the environment of the business is suitable for every business. And for him, he's going to make sure that anything that will stand on his way or on the way of the policy that he's bringing up is going to play. A clear indication meaning that any civil servant or public servant that will obstruct the policy of government in ensuring that the business environment is stable, that means the government of the day will not take it easy with such individual. And I would love that, and I hope we'll be able to implement that, because for instance, we are still having problem with pipeline vandalism in the area, oil and gas sector. We also have issue with insecurity that is keeping foreign direct investment away from states. We also have issues whereby multiple taxation is happening, whereby some government agencies is taking advantage of some gaps and loops and lapses in government policy to take advantage of what they are doing. I just hope that the government will be able to block leakages, which is causing more corruption in the system.
All right.
I think 2023 have shown that there was big corruption in the Apex Bank, and not just the Apex Bank alone, all across government agencies. So I want to believe that he's speaking directly in the area of corruption and fighting corruption.
I mean, positing that 2023 actually revealed, the level of corruption within the Apex Bank. Exactly. I think that would be a conversation for another day. But now let's talk about, the power supply or the power sector. Of course, he spoke to that sector where he says he has assured that there will be steady power supply through power installation projects across the country. We know 2023 actually came with a lot where, a number of multinational firms exited the country. Exactly. And one would say that, the stable power supply, is not completely, unconnected from why these, multinational firms left Nigeria. But is this going to be a tall order, installing or power installation projects across the country? How realistic is that? It
is going to be realistic if the federal government is going to take the state government along.
Okay.
I remember we have unbundled the electricity power sector. It has now been differentiated in a way that the state government or the state government can now also generate, transmit and distribute electricity. So I'm not expecting the federal government alone to sit aloof and be talking about electricity power generation. No. What is the role of the state governors or state government in electricity generation, transmission and distribution across board? Because the federal government power facilities are only generating 13,000 megawatts. So if by the time the state government power sector also come into this, we can have enough electricity to be generated and transmitted and distribution. But if the federal government is still the only person focusing on this, then the realization of this dream of the president may not be in fruition, in the sense that we may generate, we may not be able to distribute if enough transformers and enough substations are not built across. And one thing I have understood about this electricity power sector in Nigeria is that that rural areas are even enjoying electricity more than we in the urban centers.
Why is that?
It happens because the categorization of this distribution is spelled out in the act that established TCN and how they do their businesses.
Okay.
But the other aspect of it is that because of the categorization of high business areas, which urban centers are included, the rural areas are not where industries are located. How which the industry location can now revert to the rural areas. They will enjoy electricity, but majority of our industries and factories are in the urban centers.
Yeah.
So by the time everybody's in the urban center, the kind of electricity that is being generated and distributed at the urban center is very small. And look at the kind of sensitivity and kind of attraction that these distribution companies are using. The more an area pay, the more they supply them electricity. The more an area doesn't pay them, they don't supply electricity. So it all depends on how much you are paying, how much you are buying in terms of the bulk of electricity and the more they are going to supply. So I want to suggest that if the government is intending to succeed in this new narrative that the president is talking about, they must encourage manufacturing sector to also look at rural areas and establish there. There was a policy in this country that talked about rural industrialization, whereby localization of industry in rural areas. What happened to that policy?
Well, let's leave that hanging. Let's talk about the removal of fuel subsidy. You know, last year there was a revelation that the federal government is still subsidizing,
Exactly.
PMS.
Exactly.
But apparently the president didn't really, hit the nail on the head in that regard. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. You know what happened was that, in the past, we have politicized and make a media show of what subsidy is all about. There's nothing wrong with government paying subsidy for us. In developing countries, they pay subsidy for everything. In the US, in the UK, someone was analyzing food inflation in the US, and he said that, you know how much the government of US is putting into food so that they can suppress the price of food in the US. We can't do it here in Nigeria. If we do it here in Nigeria, media will begin to shout and say, oh, the government is paying subsidy. What is wrong with subsidy? For me, when this issue came up, I was like, I'm very happy that there's a magic wand the government have put into that sector. So even if you shout from now to tomorrow the government is paying subsidy, everybody just keep quiet, watching and looking at you, look at you. You don't understand. If you understand critically what's the meaning of subsidy, nobody will be writing about subsidy being paid by government. But we understand why they are doing that, particularly the media and some of us that analyze it, because of the corruption within the administration of subsidy in our own climate. And that is what the government have been able to subdue. Although I'm not saying there is totally elimination of corruption in that sector, but at least there's a feasibility of accountability from NNPC, who's now in charge. Then the 56 companies that the government gave license to import PMS to, they are now doing their work as expected.
Okay. Now let's talk about food security and affordability. I mean, this is just about the last thing we're going to be discussing today on the show. He says he's going to tackle rising cost of food items, by providing stimulus, for farmers to grow agricultural products. You talked about another country where, they introduced some sort of subsidy to suppress, a surge in the price of food and, essentials, if you like. But here in Nigeria, we know that the absence of price control or regulation is a pointer to the fact, why we have, foodstuff, the prices, why they keep skyrocketing almost on a daily basis.
You are very correct. And the problem with our system is that I just hope the new energy that the government is bringing into supporting farmers is not to be giving people money. Because in the past, we have been giving farmers money, we have been buying tools for them, we have been buying seedling for them. I will not encourage that, and I will not support the government to do that. We have done that in the past. CBN spent over 1.5 trillion doing all these jamborees and never yielded anything. What we have suggested to the government in the past was that when these farmers produce, buy from them. Take it away from them. Don't allow the middlemen and the sabotaging element to go and buy and store. When they store it, they make it, at the end of the day, they store it and wait for the high price to come and they begin to sell. Right now, a lot of goods are being kept. Food items are making maize, beans that was harvested in December, the same thing with maize, the same with other grains. They are being stored right now. They are waiting for February. And when by February they'll bring it and begin to sell it at high price, including melon and the rest of them. So what I've suggested in the past for government, buy these things from these farmers and store it by yourself. Or I know they all do that by storing grain. But at the end of the day, the corruption in the system do not allow it to even come out to the people, because you discover that government grains are being sold at higher price in the market. But there is a new way they can do it so that it will get to Nigerians and get to them cheaply.
Farmers would want to, some of them would want to argue with you when you say that the federal government should not give monies, to them. I mean, any form of support like helping them with tools, fertilizers and all of that. Because, I mean, we've heard stories of farmers who always lament that the federal government, is yet to really support them in a way that they would actually love the government to, because they think that the federal government, or the government as it were, showing some sort of support by giving them fertilizers, maybe at subsidized rate, would actually help them, do a lot. And
you ask me, who are those farmers that government is complaining? The rural farmers don't complain. Do they even know anything about government's existence in the area? But the ones that complain are the portfolio farmers that we see that open offices in the city centers, call themselves Farmers Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Rice Farmers, Potato Rice Farmers, all manner of associations all across Nigeria. Those are the ones that get the fund.
Okay, they are called portfolio farmers.
Yes, portfolio farmers or political farmers.
Oh,
but the real farmers doesn't get the access. The real farmers will still go to the market to buy all those tools that he wants to use, not these ones. So we just hope that government can have a new understanding on how to deal with the farmer. And they must deal with the farmer through the state government, local government, and have independent people to monitor some of these things. The problem we have in agriculture is where government is spending money here and there because there is no independent follow-up on some of these projects.
All right. Thank you very much, Adefolarin. I'm afraid we just have to leave the conversation here now because of time. Well, the new year has just started. I mean, it is still the first day in the year 2024. And according to the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he says he will continue to work towards a better Nigeria. Of course, time will tell as to how realistic that statement is. Adefolarin Olamilekon is an economist and also lead researcher at Politics Analytics. Thank you so much for your time on News Analysis.
Thanks for always having me.
And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget you can follow us across social media platforms at Politics and Business TV. Until next time, I am Omohefe. Peace or Semere.